whenever you see a movement that is trying to disarm the citizenry, the citizens of a country, okay, the people of a country, let me say that's a lot easier to say. It's really part of a culture of death, okay? And I want to give you some quick examples of this, because you might think to yourself, well, how is gun control, right? That's what I'm talking about here when I say the disarming of citizens. We're talking about gun control. That would be the political language that's being used nowadays. Or gun violence. That's another good one, okay? Which, by the way, there's violence of all kinds. And but the one that they really focus on is gun violence, okay? And there's a reason for that. And I think there's a reason for that. And I think it has to do with violating your natural right to keep and bear arms. But here are the examples before I get too off on a tangent there. Part of the culture that we're talking about here is what we would call a culture of death. Okay, and this is emanating namely from the left. That's not to say that there are people on the right who would agree to a certain extent with some of these issues. But it's really the left that is pushing this culture of death. And I'll just give you a couple of examples here. Think of abortion, right? Abortion is the taking of a human life. Now, some might argue and say, well, it's just, it's not a human yet. They're not born yet. So it's technically not a human. They don't technically have rights. And if you want to have that argument, that's fine. But you're gonna have to admit that you're taking some kind of life at some point. Now, of course, I believe personally that a child in the womb is as much a human as a child that's outside the womb. Okay, that's where I stand on that. But abortion is a huge thing, and it's part of the culture of death, and is constantly being pushed. And then we have here's something you may have not heard of recently, anyways. Is they don't push this as much in the mainstream media, but it's out there. And I've read several books on this, and it's the population control. Now, with population control is interesting because I've actually been wanting to do a series on this for a while now. I've read several books on the question, and I really kind of want to take some time. And so maybe in the future, that'll be something that we might be able to do. But population control is the idea of how do we get the world to have lesser humans in it so that we may be able to save the planet. It's an extension of climate discussions and climate ideology and this kind of thing. And so you have population control. Now, one of the things that I found very, very interesting in my study of population control was that the use of abortion was huge. This is a big part of what they utilize, okay? Now, think about that. It's interesting because population control is about controlling the human population, right? And one of the biggest things that they want to do with that is make abortion more accessible to women that may not have it. Well, aren't you by extension calling those babies in the womb human? If your end goal is population of human, making that less, controlling that. So anyways, again, I don't want to get off on another tangent here, but we also have this third problem, which is the problem we're going to talk about today, and that's the disarming of the people, okay? And as we're going through this, if you listen carefully, you're going to see how this is part of the culture of death.